background and experience?
I spent about 15 years working for an advertising agency called McCoy Advertising, and I spent the last 20 years working for what was a web publishing company, but became Prime Media. I published agricultural magazines. I published 5 agricultural magazines. I launched one of those magazines in 1985. It's now owned by Gord's Dairyman down in Wisconsin, but it's still being published. In my other background, part-time, I had 2 years of active duty in the Army and about 23 in the reserves after I got off active duty. So that's my background.
I carried mail for 30 years. For several years, I was a union representative, which involved a lot of, at times, conflict resolution. I am a born mediator. I am in the middle. I'm the youngest of the oldest of the youngest in a 10-child family. So I was called on at an early age to be a mediator. And especially even when my parents died, I was the one that was called on to plan everything. For some reason, they think I was good at it. But I spent 30 years, and before I worked for the post office, I worked for a small manufacturing plant, and I worked myself up from midnight supervisor to daytime supervisor before the post office called. So, I've worked. That's about all I can say about that.
We answered all the questions apparently.
I'm compulsive with questions. What would you consider to be the biggest risk you see in the whole Applewood, in our building, in our community?
That is a hard question.
Have Steve start.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tom. I'll remember this. The biggest risk is like I mentioned when we were checking out the condominiums in Hawaii. Other than the fact that we know for sure we're not going to be able to afford to live there, it's making sure that we have a good, solid financial foundation. That when we need money, it's going to be there. The biggest risk I see it is that that's not going to be there. That's the biggest risk we saw when we toured the condominiums in Hawaii. Their biggest problem was when they needed money, they didn't have it. They ended up taking huge long-term loans out. In one case, it was that their monthly dues nearly doubled for 15 years in order to pay that loan off. So I don't want that happening here. Our biggest risk is making sure we have enough money when we need to have it.
I think I got an answer, at least for me, and what your question is. And I think the biggest risk we have is complacency. As I said earlier, we're all new slate, all of that. Look around, everything looks good. And if we make the assumption that it's going to look that way in another year, another 5 years, another 10 years, we are making an incorrect assumption. It won't. And that's probably the biggest risk. And that's also tied into what we said about reserving the money.
Ron, are you suggesting we're going to come to coffee in our slippers in our house coat?
It's a concept. We could go with that. Jammies and everything.
What does that say?
I'm trying to formulate this question. We lived in a, we lived in an association of 40 families. And one of the things that our board did, which I know was extremely time consuming, is that they developed a matrix of all the things that had to be done throughout, through the future. if I'm wrong about this, say so.
No, you're right.
And he would be, Gene would be a good person to put on that task, but.
You agree with that, Jane?
But I didn't understand it quite at first, but what I came to realize is that it was really an important tool that helped us replace things as they needed to be replaced, like the roofs. Yeah, the asphalt, a number of other things, bushes, blah, 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 blah.
Well,
So there
there's
was never
good
a
history.
surprise.
There's good history on some of those things we can't get from other co-ops. How long did your roof last? Things like that. Those still gonna be variable because of locations.
And weather.
Yeah,
DJ,
Can both of you comment on your financial background, because you've both indicated that this is very important, and I think we think it's all important, so too. But what would your backgrounds be as far as financial area?
from the financial standpoint, I was the group publisher of 5 magazines, and I had profit and loss responsibility for them, and my bonus was tied to the profitability. And profitability also, sustainability was involved in that, because you have to maintain the reader base, and you have to maintain the advertising base, and that all ties to how good the publications are or not.
Turn myself off.
All right, there we go, there I am. I do not have a strong business financial background. Joan and I have owned a house for 30 years. We kept it going, kept it up to date, let out our own contracts, paid for it. We put a daughter through Ivy League college. You don't think you need to know about finances and try putting a kid through Ivy League school. So, I know how to balance a checkbook. I know whether or not I have money to buy something or whether or not I don't. I know how to say no if I don't think we have the money, and I know how to say yes if I think it's something we should spend money on. But I don't know that. I guess that's all I have to say about that.
There are some things that you can't control. You can control building expenses and so on, but there are things that are going to increase every year that have to be compensated for. One of them that comes to mind is property taxes. Property taxes go up every single year. As a homeowner here in Eagan, my property taxes went up every year. Sometimes they went up a significant amount. Sometimes they didn't go up that much. So how do you compensate for that every year? And how do you do it slowly? Do you do it by a small amount every year, or do you let it spike and then we run out of money, and then all of a sudden we all get billed for a big check?
Well, I think it's really naive to think that we are not going to be raising monthly rates ever. I mean, they will go up. Expenses, like you said, expenses go up. And it's funny you would mention that. I sat in on the ad hoc finance committee meetings, and one of the big concerns was our property taxes. They were not very high. We didn't spend a lot of money on this last time around because it was a construction-based tax. We are due for a rather sizable increase in our property tax this next year coming around. So that's why I say we need to really be careful about our discretionary spending, because we have a rather sizable increase in that coming up. So
What made you say that?
that may just be one of the things we're going to have to sit down and write a check for. I hope not. But we do at this time have some reserves put away. United Properties had that going on right from the beginning. So hopefully we can avoid a lot of that, but, you know, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a concern, it's a real concern.
Well, you can watch the trends on tax increases over time in communities like Egan, and you can use that as a guide in terms of planning for what you're gonna have to appropriate for to cover your taxes, because there is a general increase. If there's a huge increase from one year to the next and over and above whatever the trend lines are, usually it's gonna mean there's some problems with the city itself. But you can use trend lines to help you a lot in that area. You're never gonna be 100% certain, but you're gonna be close.
My question for you guys is I think we all agree it's important that people that are on the board don't have specific agendas for themselves. Is there anything in particular, though, that you guys think right now would be a really important thing for the board to address right away?
Well, when we put our deposit down on our unit, we were handed a binder, as everybody else was. And they said, go home and read this, and I made the mistake of actually doing that. It has occurred to me that the board has a very, very great deal of power. Now, it was explained to me, well, they really need that. I think they have a little more than they need, and I think it's actually just a little bit too easy for us to be changing the bylaws and the policies. I would like to see the board to relinquish a little of that power back to the owners to make them responsible for things. The board isn't here to rule. The board is here to serve. You people tell the board what you want. We, as the owners, direct the board to do what we want. The board is not here to tell us how things are going to be.
Well, I think the biggest challenges the board's going to face with starting up is we have a lot of ad hoc committees that have been just formed. We've got to get those committees organized and get them up and functioning, because they're going to do a lot of the work that needs to be done, and they already have. And getting them from the point of just being who wants to be involved with marketing, who wants to be involved with this, that, or the other thing, getting to the point where they got a structure, they're going to meet a certain number of times, and then communicating with the board and the board working with the committees and the members in that way. I think that's the initial challenge, because we've kind of had a way of doing things now for about 9-10 months, and we're going to have to slip away from that a little bit.
I actually believe that these committees will change very much from the ones that volunteer to do the work to the ones that are going to be appointed to do the work. I would be very surprised if the faces on the committees changed a whole lot.
No, just one more question. Have you given any thought to what particular position you may want to hold on the board if you were given your choice?
I haven't.
I want to be the boss.
This is more comment in regard to the property taxes. We've lived in Egan for 30 years, and during that time our taxes did go up some, but it was never a sizable jump. And I remember at least one year when it actually went down. Two of the reasons we came to Egan, Applewood Point, is because of the county being very well run and the city being very well run. They're both fiscally very responsible. And it's important when elections come along that you pay attention to who you're voting for, because they will determine what happens to your taxes.
I will have to add, Joan and I have been living in Egan for more than 30 years now, and we're still here. We decided to stay here, and for the very reasons he mentioned.
Well, Mary and I lived in St. Paul for about 40 years. We know about increasing taxes. If you want to learn more about it, see me separately.
Or me.
I'm Ron's wife, Mary. I just want to testify to Ron's skills and ability.
Foul.
My
Joan?
name is Ron Sorensen, and
Yeah, I watched for over 50 years him handling rough things, and, you know, just living with me is testifying to that. And his skills are just incredible. And
She wants to make me vote for her. Well, are you done abusing us for now? Ron and I will both be around. We're here. Grab me in the hall, call me, 309. I'm available anytime, really anytime, any day. Joan and I leave on the 17th for San Diego. And we'll be back the 3rd of April. But anytime up until then, I'm more than happy to sit down and discuss anything you want.
You certainly address the finances part, but another part of the board is setting up living conditions, rules, procedures for things. I'm just wondering where you fall in that spectrum of letting anybody have any color window tint they want and any kind of exterior and whatever on the patio, to having a set of rules where everybody has to do the same thing and make sure their cages in the basement all look the same and things like that. Where are you on lots of rules versus no rules?
from my standpoint, I think we have to be careful that we don't end up like putting some Gary stuff up on decks or in windows so we look like Arab encampment in the middle of a Sahara desert. That ties into the marketability of the units. So I think we have to do enough to keep this thing looking like a very professional, very livable kind of a place. And we still have to have some freedom within that range. Freedom has to go within the individual units. We have so far, because we haven't had a board, we really haven't been fully organized, there hasn't been a lot of conversation about, I guess the window film's the first thing I've actually seen, but about what do things to do in various places to add on or change. Yeah, that's certainly going to come as we go along, but we haven't had a lot to deal with.
I will mention that binder, everybody was handed when you signed up. It does spell out a lot of what we can and can't do right then and there. The board is going to have to make a few pretty hard decisions here when it comes to storage. As far as we need to really kind of be consistent as far as looks and stuff. Randy seems to be doing a great job of being thorough about this window tint thing. We won't use it because we don't really need it. But I think consistency is important. Yeah, the board is going to have to make a few rather hard decisions here real soon, as we take over. I mean, we've been kind of protected by Paramark and United Properties, and we're about to take over, so we're going to have to get together as a group. It's like I said, the board does not exist to rule over everyone. The board exists to serve this community. So it's what you want is what's going to happen, is what needs to happen. So it's going to take the involvement of everybody here to make those decisions.
Hi, Woody Barber is my name, 303, and we have some friends. This is just a kind of a warning, I guess. I'll go along with those guys. They talk about taxes. However, taxes are not the only thing to watch, because we have some friends that live at Presbyterian Homes, although that's a fully rental unit kind of place over there. It's in Apple Valley. There's the other maintenance to be concerned about. Each of us has to be concerned about paint on the walls, and anything that we do that wrecks anything that needs fixing is going to cost us some money. Presbyterian Homes was expecting a 2% increase, and they got 4%. So that might be a guideline for you to think about a little bit. And if you're paying $3,000 or $4,000 a month, 4% doesn't sound like so much, but it is on $4,000, $160 a month. So if you continue that for 10 years, you're paying $1,600 more than when you moved in. So you need to think about everything you do in regard to the whole facility, not just the taxes.
And thank you, Woody, and this comments like this is what I mean by participation. Everybody sitting in this room, take a look around. We are all responsible for this co-op. The board will not exist to shove everything off onto. I don't intend to be the one making all the decisions. You are gonna have to be right there helping me do it.
Well, some of that ties into the general care of the facility in terms of keeping it clean and in reducing the amount of nicks and scrapes and the like that occur. There's a lot of challenges even here that we know that we're gonna have to take care of in terms of maintaining the facility that we really have to be addressed soon.
Hi, this is Sandy Thompson. This has been really useful and informative, and the next board candidate introduction is going to be 9 of us speaking. And what I'm wondering is whether we would consider spreading out the board introductions over the next couple of weeks, so we don't have to have 9 people trying to respond all at once.
I agree wholeheartedly